So here I have a data set that's comparing many things, or that I want to compare many things to each other. And what we're looking at is information about cars. And you can see from the column heading here that for each of these individual cars, I've got information about their power in RPMs, the size of their gas tank, their fuel efficiency, their acceleration in kilometers per hour, and then the size of their engines in regards to the cylinders. And then also the cost of the car. So this is cars from Germany, so we have kilometers and liters that we're looking at. And I have this information for, it looks like 175 different cars. So what if I wanted to know what the whether there was a correlation between any of these particular columns to each other? So for example, is there a relation between, or an association between the RPMs and their acceleration? So maybe I want to be able to look at an correlation coefficient between power and acceleration. But I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different columns here, and I can actually do a comparison of all of them to each other in one step. So how do I do that? Well, if I want to find R, or the correlation coefficient, I can go to Stat, Summary Stats, Correlation, and I'm going to select all of the columns that we were just talking about. So that's power, all the way through base price in Germany. And then at the bottom of this screen, this check is already here. It says to show this graph, and I'm going to leave it checked this time. I took it off before. So when I hit compute, what we see is this matrix. And in this matrix, it's comparing the power to gas tank, or power to fuel efficiency. And this is the R value for each one of those. So power to each one of these 4 on the side, or gas tank to each one of those. And it's one way for me to be able to look at the R value, but there's another way that also shows up on here because of that thing we left checked. So if I click next, this is a pretty cool graphic. And what it's doing is it took those correlation values from the previous screen, and it's identifying them now by color. So if you notice at the top of our color chart over here, we have a correlation closest to 1 is going to be the darkest blue. And then any correlation closest to -1 is going to be this dark red. In between, when you have a correlation close to 0, you have color almost at white. So now I can visually look at these R values, and I can determine rather quickly which are going to have the best correlation, or maybe the best positive correlation. So a positive correlation is going to be anything showing up in blue. And if I just scan through these colors over here, I can identify this cell right here. This is the darkest blue, and it also has the number closest to 1. And this is a comparison between fuel efficiency and power. And you'll notice that this the yellow pop-up that's showing you here, the correlation coefficient between the two is given as 0.924. And if I wanted to know whose correlation, so that would be a pretty strong positive correlation. So I can quickly identify, well, who has in here then the weakest correlation? Now the weakest correlation would be some sort of correlation value closest to 0. So I'm looking for the color white, and I can see here that this is the whitest color on the screen. It has the smallest correlation coefficient of 0.026, and we can see that it is comparing the cylinders to the gas tank, which kind of makes sense to me because cylinders being the engine, gas tank being the size of the tank, so those kind of make sense to me. So you can see that I can quickly use this option in StatCrunch to identify correlation, and I can do it using this second screen up here, this parallelogram or whatever that's called, and I can use it by color. So again, how did I get here? Well, I went to stat, summary stats, correlation, and I chose all of these columns to create the correlation on. So I hope that helps.